Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we have the awesome Christine with us. Hi, Christine, how are you?
Hi Saskia, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, thank you so much for coming along today. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Yes, my name's Christine Corau. I'm British, obviously, singer-songwriter. I'm 53 at the moment, so a slightly older version of most singer-songwriters around. I'm based in the Midlands in the UK, not far from Birmingham. And basically, I started many years ago writing songs in my teens, very much sort of more folk-based kind of stuff on guitar. And it's just got to the point where last year I actually decided to release my music to the world. So that's where I've come to in a nutshell.
Awesome, and how have you found that? And obviously, it's taken you a little while. So, how have you kind of found that and navigated that?
Um, it's really hard actually. Everybody says that it's a really difficult system to navigate, and it's really time consuming, and you end up spending sort of 20% time on your music, 80% on social media and all that sort of thing. They're not wrong. Um, I mean, I literally I'd got an album ready by the end of sort of 2023.
Right.
Um, and I thought, okay, I've got an album ready. I've produced it. It's sort of, I've just got to get it mixed and mastered.
I
That's
was going
not
to-
a just, but I thought it was a just at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and I literally just started January last year setting up all my social media, setting up my distributor, PRS, PPL, all the things that you have to do. And uh, it was very time consuming. Yes, yeah, last year was a really busy year. And that's not because I was making my music last year. That's because I was just trying to get everything set up and
Yeah,
running and get my music out there.
it's just super important to get paid, right?
Well, yes, I'm still waiting for that.
And how have you kind of found navigating the social media landscape? Because obviously that's changed over the years that you've been in the music industry. So how have
Oh,
you done that?
yeah. I mean, I've never been, I have to confess, a huge social media user, bit of Facebook, bit of Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'm not the sort of person that likes to go, oh, look at me, buy my music.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's probably one of the hardest things to get your head around, actually putting yourself out there. If you're not that sort of person, that's the hardest thing because it just feels really alien. But like I say, the other thing is that it is so time consuming,
Yeah.
because you've just got to keep at it, keep going with it.
Yeah. And how have you kind of found like, does that take away some of your creative kind of focus when you're focused so much on the social media? Do you find that has an impact on what you bring out and how long that takes as well?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, last year, because of various reasons, it was a difficult year anyway. But it was only perhaps towards the sort of latter part of the year that I really started picking up my guitar, playing the keyboard again with a view to actually writing new songs. And I'd forgotten how much I'd missed it until I actually started it again.
Yeah.
So yes, it takes up a huge amount of time, and the people who have managers and labels behind them are so lucky in that respect. I'm not sure about everything else, but that they're getting paid and they're getting a lot of support in that way. But at the same time, it does mean that I've got full control
Exactly.
over what I do,
Yeah.
when I do it, how I do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Organic, isn't it?
yeah, so it's all swings and roundabouts at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And did you get into music through a passion or did you have a musical education that got you there in the first place? How did that happen?
I've had a strange path.
Yeah.
I've not had just a general musician's path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I learnt classical guitar when I was younger. I did most of my grades on classical guitar. So back in the day, I was quite good. Um, and I actually did a degree in pharmacy.
Okay.
Um, so, so nothing to do with music
Yeah.
whatsoever. I was a pharmacist for years, and I'd always loved singing as well. When I played classical guitar, I actually started writing my own songs then and singing songs on guitar, just for myself, not going out and doing anything in particular. But yes, it was probably about 18 years ago that I thought, I really hate what I'm doing and I really love music and I'd love to do more music. And I actually went for some vocal coaching because I hadn't had singing lessons since I was 18,
Yes.
sort of about 18 years ago. And I decided to go and I thought, oh, she's doing this from home. I'd got a young child at the time.
Mm.
Um, Maybe I could get into this. And so I looked into retraining as a singing teacher, as a vocal coach. And I've been doing that for sort of about 15 years now.
Oh,
But that still didn't bring my songwriting back to the forefront. That was always still at the bottom of the pile after sort of work, family, everything else. So it was, what, 4 years ago now that I decided to do a master's in songwriting.
right, okay. And what did you do that?
And I did it with Bath Spa University. It was a 2-year part-time online course,
Yeah.
and it's the best thing I ever did.
Oh,
And I did it with the aim of bringing my songwriting back to the forefront because I knew I'd have to do it if I did the course. So I did, in a roundabout way, get a slightly musical education, but it was sort of at the beginning
yeah.
and over the last few years, and not so much in the middle.
Totally understand. I really do. And obviously, you're in the Midlands. Do you find that also has an impact on networking, on progression, on collaboration? How is the music industry over in the Midlands at the moment and the networks over there?
I mean, I think I'm quite lucky because I'm less than half an hour away from Birmingham, and Birmingham is obviously a really big cultural city, and it's big with the arts, and there's lots of places that you can perform, that you can network, you can go to networking events and collaborate. It's always, everybody thinks, oh, I've got to be down in London, that's where it's all happening, and obviously that is the hub of everything.
Yeah.
But I think being close to a big city like Birmingham, it does give you lots of opportunity if you want those opportunities. So yeah, I'm okay. I'm not moving yet.
I hear that as well, actually. And what kind of challenges and barriers have you faced accessing the music and entertainment industries?
Um, I think my personal one more so is age. Like I say, I'm 53 now,
Yeah.
and I've only just started releasing music.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of, I'd say, social media. If you look on social media, it's all about sort of the youngsters, and there's some great young singers, songwriters uh, out there. But there's also, when you look, there's some absolutely fantastic songwriters, musicians that
Yeah.
are sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I do think that they get overlooked a lot. I know there's always an element, and I did a whole sort of thesis on sort of misogyny in the music
Yeah.
industry in relation to production as part of my master's. So there's always that element, I think, of sexism that comes into it.
Mm. That's very
Um,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, and there's been loads and loads of research actually done on that, and there's loads of ongoing um,
Very.
sort of papers and stuff that
Yeah.
that are still going on with diversity, with inclusion, and sexism, sort of everything in relation to diversity is always being looked at, but it never really seems to get many more steps forward,
We
even
tend
though,
to talk about it quite a lot, but not much action. Totally agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think ageism is perhaps less discussed, and it's just a well-known thing when you look at sort of like billboards and top 40s and Grammys, all those sorts of things. It's always the younger people or the older people who've been in the industry since they were young.
Yeah. So I was about to say the average age for a headline act is now 53 years old. So, but they've obviously been around for a long time. But then
Yeah.
there's also a benefit, I think, to ages, especially when you're a songwriter. You've got lived experience. You can actually write about so many different things you've been through in your life because you've experienced them, you've been through them. How do you find that? Do you think that's a benefit when you're actually writing songs?
Absolutely. That was one thing I was going to say, that you do have all that experience, you have those memories, that you have those things, those personal things you've been through yourself, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. And I suppose my album I released last year, Three Scarlet Words, that was a little bit of a sort of self-reflection on sort of my journey of love throughout the years. It's not just about me, but it's sort of like the different stages of love that you can go through, and how love works its way through and entwines itself into every aspect of life, whether that's learning to love yourself, falling in love, falling out of love, heartbreak, loss, and all the different aspects. So I think, obviously, with my experience, one of the things that I love the most about songwriting is the lyrics. And I think that really, really helps the having the experience to create lyrics that are perhaps a little bit deeper, that sort of can draw people in a little bit more.
This is about relatability, isn't it? And it's about people also personalizing it to their own personal experience. So you could write a song and I could listen to it and I can actually personalize that to my own lived personal experiences and connect with you in those ways, can't I?
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful thing about music. Everybody can relate to them in their own way. It can be a completely different idea of how the song was
Right.
originally written. I
Yeah.
mean, Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill was a
Yeah.
perfect example when it came into the Stranger Things. But it does, it lets people sort of live what they want to live through a piece of music, through a song.
Yeah. And since you brought your album out, how have you found that and how is the album going at the moment? What's going on with that?
It's going in small steps. I consider my journey in very small steps, but it's getting out there. It's had sort of more local radio play, and I'm getting the sort of like I'm gradually getting more and more people sort of listening to it, taking notice of it, which is nice. I wasn't expecting, fireworks and sort of grand ceremonies or anything like that, and it the whole idea of releasing my music was more for myself. I've got all this sort of back catalogue that I've done. I mean, this album is actually all new work, but I just felt it's just stupid just for it to be sitting there, not doing anything. And I wanted to share it. So, from my personal point of view, I'm really happy with how it's doing. For somebody like Taylor Swift, she might be quite disappointed.
I'm sure she wouldn't be. If she heard your album, I'm sure she would love it. I really think she would. And Christine, obviously, looking at equality, diversity, inclusion, what could we improve to make sure that we are including everybody and that we do eradicate ageism? Because I think, there's enough space for everyone in the music industry and there's a market for everyone, So
Yeah,
what do you think we could improve and how could we improve that?
I think the nice thing is, there are various projects and approaches which look at different aspects of diversity and inclusion. So there are things. I'm personally part of something called Female DIY Musician, which actually got me started into producing, but in a safe space for women.
Great.
And I think things like that for all aspects of diversity and inclusion at the moment are
Yes.
really, really important. Hopefully, there's the sort of things we won't actually need further down the line. But the sort of projects that are based on for people, sort of race, sort of, LGBT, all these things, people who find it that they have a difficult time. We all have a difficult time for different reasons, ageism, sexism, whatever it is, and just trying to find people who can sort of hone in on how to help those people through, make them more prominent, so then they can actually sort of herald to other people, look, I'm here. I'm this sort of person. So there's lots of others like me who are waiting to come along. It's just having that presence there, isn't it? So
Inspiration, 100%. And obviously, when you started in the industry, in the beginning, it was very male dominated. Are you starting to see that shift now and seeing more females being chosen for lineups and more collaborations and more safe spaces for women?
I think there is definitely more of that going on. Like I say, that technically speaking, you think, well, there shouldn't have to be.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's true.
but at the moment, that there's lots, definitely in the producing world as well. We see lots of groups, organisations, projects that focus. Because it's sort of a bit of my research that I looked into, focus on the safe spaces for women to do their producing, and it is nice that that is there,
Yes.
but there's still so much to be done, I think. So we're making steps, we're making headway, but it's baby steps.
But in the right direction, which is what I
Yeah.
love. Do you also think cultural, age, and political issues sometimes have an impact on how far we can go with the equity, diversity, inclusion in the music and entertainment industries?
Yes, I suppose. That's a good question. Yeah, I haven't really noticed, I suppose, in relation to myself.
Yeah,
But I mean, obviously, political policies are always going to come into aspects of diversity, inclusion, cultural age difference. It's always going to impact that,
yeah,
and you can see just by the sort of the differences between Conservatives and Labour being they're all going to have different policies, different ways of dealing with things.
yeah,
So yes, it's always going to be there. I think. I think it's everybody's going to have a different view,
yeah.
and
That's it, isn't it?
culturally, politically, and then that's good in a sense. We can't all think exactly the same. We've got to sort of argue things out a little bit. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of influence, sort of like culturally and politically, in relation to the diversity and can't
Inclusion.
say it, inclusivity.
I was also going to say to you as well, like being in the music industry, it's very fast paced, it's very full on. Do you think that affects your mental health and the way you feel about yourself at times?
Yes, it's the short answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I consider myself quite lucky in that I think, um, well, I hope that I manage my mental health quite well.
yeah,
But last year is probably one of the most stressful years that I've had. And like I say, there was other things going on, but just
yeah,
trying to get everything done, because I'm trying to do it on top of working as well. It's not,
yeah.
um,
It's not your income bringer. It's not paying the bills.
no, and this is the same for the majority of independent artists. They're working, sort of like mainly a lot of the time full-time jobs, but still trying to release the music, market, promote the music, all around that. So you do have to, I think, learn when you've got to say no, when you need your downtime, when you need to switch off. And I'm saying that particularly because I think I only really focused on that right at the beginning of this year, right at the end of last year. And I've actually sort of moved things around, shifted things around in my life a little bit, and tried to prioritize a little bit more time for me. I'm
Yeah,
still
but
working like a mad thing,
it's hard, isn't
but
it?
yeah,
But
but yeah, setting a little bit of space so you've got your time to think, to understand what you need to do that helps keep you sane at the end of the day.
techniques that you would like to share? Because I obviously do affirmations, I do meditation, I do prayer, I go to church. So all these kind of things, they do help me. Sometimes when I'm struggling or I feel a bit down, do you have any techniques that you use?
I think the thing I like the most is exercise. I row 3 times a week,
Oh,
um, and it's like, well, I won't get too excited. It's not like Olympic standard or anything, but but
lots. have to boat races all the time, so I know about the rowing. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. But that's something I enjoy. And I like walking every day. It sounds boring, but I think it just gives you that little bit of headspace. I try to put my phone, I take my phone with me. I try to put it in my pocket and not
Well,
look at it.
yeah.
Sometimes I do.
It's
But that's the aim because it just, and I think getting outside as well for me, especially when you're producing, you can spend hours and hours just sat in front of a screen. And if I'm teaching, it's all in my house. So it's important for me to actually get out of the house. But I think the other thing is because music for a lot of people is like a hobby, with
yes.
music for me, being music artist and a vocal coach, so teaching singing as well, that having that as a job, it's not a hobby anymore. So I think something like reading, I love reading, and
Mm,
I like reading actual books,
yeah. Yeah.
proper paper. Um, and so that's almost like a switch off from the music side of things as well.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for sharing that with us as well, Christine. I was also going to touch on marketing because you mentioned this earlier on. How important do you think it is to find out who your audience is and how to reach them in an effective way?
Well, it's very important. I think I'm still trying to find mine. I think I mean with my music because it's not your standard pop music, so it's got lots of elements. Sort of, it's more adult contemporary with it's like a bit of sort of underlying folk and a slight bit of art rock, and so I've got quite a lot of elements to it. And I think you know how you're saying with the experience being able to filter into the songwriting. I think that song with my lyrics perhaps being one of the most important pieces of my songwriting. I think my music tends to be more more listened to, I suppose, by people who like sort of deeper lyric writing, slightly, you know, more substance to a song. That sounds really bad for other people. I don't mean that in a derogatory way to anybody else. Yeah, so I think over the year I've been learning more and more, and obviously with you know analytical tools from social media, it does make it a lot easier to try and find
Sure.
who's listening to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to then obviously try and target those sort of people. So I think for me, it's still an ongoing journey. I'm still learning. I know sort of roughly the type of people who are listening, but it's still trying to understand what do they find most interesting about my music.
And that takes time as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
It
it
does.
does.
I was also going to ask, have you ever suffered from discrimination or stigma being in the music industry, or even just bringing out your songs, or from people that might have listened to it?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've had um, there's nothing major that I've particularly experienced. There's always the odd thing where you know people are saying, "Oh well, your men are saying, oh well, you've produced this," and they start getting all techie and talking to doing the whole mansplaining thing.
I'm not good at tech. Your best
And
battle.
but it's one of those things that it's almost like I've had people men trying to catch me out,
Yeah.
saying, "Oh well, why did you, you know, why did you do it this way, and why didn't you do X, Y, and Z?" And it's like, well, no, it's just
I've done
not.
it.
Yeah, it's not the way I work. I did it how I wanted to do it. But
Yeah.
when I was doing my research for my project, I mean, there was lots of things that came out. I even have one friend who had such a bad time trying to work with a man that who just completely took over her work, her song, her sound. She ended up changing her artist name completely and restarting all over again.
Yeah. See, that's the problem, isn't it? When you let certain people take control or they think they are better at something than somebody else, especially from
Yeah.
a sex point of view. I think that's totally unacceptable. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but she's fighting the fight now, and she's going many places, so that's all good.
Oh, well done. I'm glad that she sorted it out in the end. Well done for her to do that and to stand to her ground as well, because that's not
Yeah,
easy. You know, I think being in an industry that is still very male dominated and men generally have the power in the industry still, and
Yeah,
decision making. So I think it can be tricky when you stand up for yourself or you don't agree with something and you feel that you have to speak out, but then you're scared, is that going to affect my career? Is that going to affect my music? Is that going to affect my name? And that's such a shame.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, you do hear it a lot, but touch wood, I've not had any majorly bad experiences yet, so
Like,
I'm all
yeah,
good.
brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that as well. Also, I'd like to say, is there any major wins or successes you would like to share with us? And is there any ways that the listeners can connect with you, find out more about your music, and tell us a little bit more about the album?
Yes, so obviously my biggest win was actually releasing my album
Hey,
last year, and that was like, yay, I've done it. I've got
yeah,
it out there.
yeah,
So it is being listened to. I have been interviewed by various people, including your lovely self now as well. Um, and yes, so I'm all over, the normal social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything. I try and get myself in all places. You can listen to me on Spotify and other streaming services, Christine Corau, and the album's called Three Scarlet Words. And so, yeah, so Bandcamp, I've got my website as well, www.christinecarai.co.uk, which has all my work on it and sort of a bit about what the album's about and how the songs have formed and what they're about as well. So that just having my music out there, that was my biggest win, and that's all I wanted to do originally, just get it out. But since that's happened, I want to keep releasing. So I'm looking to release a couple of singles over the next few months, and then hopefully in the later part of this year, another album. Um, it's
thank
all in progress as we speak.
you. Well, I'll leave all the links in the description below so people can go and check your music out, go and connect with Christine. If anyone would like to go and buy the single, please do go and buy the single and the album. So what's your next single coming out? Do you know when that is going to be?
I'm hoping in a couple of months. The next one's actually going to be a collaboration, and bizarrely enough, it's with somebody who's produced a song of mine a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
but somebody who actually went to pharmacy school with me.
Awesome. So,
I know, so it's a bit weird how things have just all come around. So
yeah,
that one, I will tell you the name. The song's called Ghost, and
those.
it's a completely different beast to everything that I've released so far. So that there you go, a little teaser.
And what kind of made you think of this song, and what's kind of inspired you with this song, and what's it about?
Well, Ghost, it's basically talking about a ghost, basically somebody who's lost somebody and still feels their presence all around them. So that's the basis of the song, but it's definitely he's moved it into the dance arena
I love
and
that.
out of
Oh,
my normal arena. So I really love it because it's just something completely different.
oh, that's good. And that's all part of the experimentation, isn't it? And figuring out, okay, what works and what's going to do well. Well, fingers
Yeah.
crossed it's all going to go really well. Thank you again for coming along, sharing your story, your views, your expertise, and being such a great guest on the show. Thank you,
Oh, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for inviting me, Saskia. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Christine. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
And you take care. Bye.